Peacemaker gives himself up and hands over the little case that opens up the dimensional doors to Rick Flag Sr., who was working with Lex Luthor and Otis and that other guy.
The other guy who's addicted to Pornhub and doesn't mind jerking off in front of people.
Don't throw stones in glass houses.
I mean, you're saying that like it's a
bad thing. Can you tell me which episode I masturbated live on, Gary?
I'm not going to tell.
I'm scared to know the answer.
There's a lot of complaints on Twitter right now from the people who are backing this up, the people who are the gunners. And one of the biggest complaints I see is James Gunn promised a bunch of cameos and they didn't show up. And I would just like to point out that if you're relying on cameos to watch your show to make it good, maybe it's not good. Just want to point that out.
So talk me through Peacemaker Season 2 a little bit.
No, God! No!
Imagine, if you will, a cast of the most loathsome, hateful, spiteful characters you can possibly imagine. That every single line they give, you just wish they would die. And then you are forced and subjected to watching them go through nonsense crap that has no meaning at all, and then stretch that out for about 8 episodes, and you have Peacemaker, the series.
The sad thing, Shad, that describes at least like 60 or 70% of modern TV.
It really does. I mean, it's just nothing happens.
Did you see season 1?
Yes.
So they reshot the ending of season 1 and replaced the Snyder characters with the original ones. And they're right back where they were in season 1. Hardcourt's broken. Peacemaker's broken. Everybody's sad. Amanda Waller's gone. Rick Flag is in.
Wait, Rick Flag is dead, isn't he?
Rick Flag Sr.
Oh, right.
Rick Flag Sr. Yeah. Who was introduced in Creature Commandos. So Peacemaker, where he keeps all his helmets and stuff, goes into his little dimension thing and finds a door just like his, walks into it and finds this utopia, right? Where his dad's still alive, his brother's still alive, and he starts going there more often than not. I could tell you what the other characters are doing, but it means shit.
Just say the real reason why he goes there, please.
The reason he's sad is he had a moment on a boat that they teased about where they fucked, and she doesn't want to be with him, so he goes to another universe to be with a version of Hardcourt that'll fuck him. That's pretty much it.
Right. Okay.
And it's a utopia. This universe has no real crime. They still have superhero issues, but there's no real crime. There's the Sons of Liberty, a small terrorist organization, but pretty much the streets are clean. Everybody's happy. Everybody's getting along. No problems whatsoever. But it turns out
see where this is leading.
Turns out that's Nazi world. It's Nazi world.
Shows tell you things that they didn't really intend to tell you.
And there is a bunch of fluff between him and Hardcourt, and should I go to the other dimension? Should I not? There's a whole thing with Eagly where he's being hunted by what's the actor's name? I'm blanking on it right now. Michael Rooker. Yeah.
Of course Michael Rooker's in this. It's James Gunn, yeah.
That goes absolutely nowhere. And there's an episode where they, the door, the dimensional door goes into a case and you can move it. So there's a whole episode where they have to move the door. And then there's a whole episode of them setting up to walk through the door. And I'm trying to make this make sense. So they're the 11th Street kids now. They're another rogue group of rogues, of rascally rogues, because that never happens in a James Gunn production, and they're not part of Argus anymore. Argus and Rick Flag are now working with Lex Luthor because they found out about these dimensional doors. Oh, Lex Luthor was in prison listening to Killer Croc and Dr. Phosphorus have sex.
Anal sex, specifically.
Anal sex, specific. Well, I mean, what else kind of two dudes? What other sex are you going to have?
As is already expressed, there are many holes.
What is wrong with James Gunn?
As John F. Trent would say, sodomy. Okay.
Yep. You can take the man out of trauma, but you can't take the trauma out the man.
Yeah.
Pretty much, man.
Yep.
Still trying to be fucking edgy, isn't he?
But James Gunn has said this is the series where they do whatever they want. So this is what he would focus on given any choice in the world.
Yeah. So the whole point of the story was they wanted to play to some jokes. So they set some stuff up, like the whole Hitler mural thing. Peacemaker is in this utopia, and he doesn't recognize this Nazi world, although there's imagery everywhere, including a giant Hitler mural in the office that he doesn't notice that he walks by. So they've introduced a multiverse. James Gunn, who came out and said he's not going to do anything like Marvel, is doing everything like Marvel faster.
Oh my god, are you telling me that James Gunn lies?
James Gunn lies.
Whatever next. Based on everything you've described about this season, I'm really struggling to pull out like what I should or what anyone should take from this show. What's
Valium.
the thing that you should learn from it?
The overall message is that our world is not that different from the Nazi world.
Sad part is, I'm not so sure this Nazi world is as different from our own world as we wish it was.
Damn straight.
Also, she's not getting chased by white people in her world. She's opening companies and having lesbian relationships and breaking up in lesbian relationships. It's the single most accurate thing that happened in the show, by the way. So, yeah, she's free to do all that shit and to make that commentary, which, okay, so are you making it about our world? Are you getting meta there, which they are? Or are you talking about the other world with Superman in it, where he's not very effective, apparently, because it's just like, so is Superman like a Nazi? Like, what the fuck are you even saying? They don't, nothing is thought through in this at all. So the finale, Peacemaker gives himself up and hands over the little case that opens up the dimensional doors and sacrifices himself for the rest of the group. And they're on their own. He goes to jail. The final episode, you would think, is like, oh, well, now Argus has access to all these dimensions. We're going to go into a bunch of dimensions and go on some adventures. And no, they do a couple of things where these little sprites attack people in cutesy Candyland.
They were Gumby Bear monsters or some shit like that.
Yeah, they do a connection to the comics that we'll get to, but Peacemaker's not in half of his finale episode, which is really fucking long. So they do a big flashback, and like it's filled with musical montages, drinkers. So there's two like concert montages in the middle of a finale of a TV show. One
you can
with
definitely tell it's James Gunn, can't you?
Absolutely. It's like one like, all right. And then like when we get to the second one, which is the band that sings the theme song for the opening of the show, I'm like, oh,
Right,
I know what this is.
it's
This is when the epiphany, when, you know, sometimes if it quacks like a duck and it walks like a duck, it's a fucking duck. James Gunn had a position of power in negotiation when DC wanted to poach him from Marvel. And he got everything he wanted. He got a big bag of money. He got all the control. And he had no fucking idea what he was doing. He's going to fake it till he makes it. And along the way, he's going to invite all his friends and have a big old fucking party on WB's dime. Because that's the only thing that explains this. The DCU is fucked. So the rest of the fucking finale... The rest of the finale is giving a happy ending to the 11th Street. So they stop in the middle, though, so the lesbians can break up. And I was laughing my ass off during this. That was the one time I genuinely laughed. I'm like, just give me a U-Haul on the outside and this will be picture perfect. In the end, they give them a happy ending. And the 11th Street gang is all happy. And all the women get together and say, fuck these dudes. We're going to start Checkmate.
They're going to start Checkmate.
Yeah, they just
Where the fuck did that come from?
They took all the money from Vigilante's basement.
I know, but it's just like, now we're just going to set up Checkmate out of fucking nowhere.
Yes, that's what they did. So Peacemaker gets abducted by Rick Flag, and what they were doing is they were searching for a dimension to put all the soups, because now Rick Flag is on Lex Luthor's side, and he sees all metahumans as a problem, and they're going to basically put him on a planet, lock the door, and leave him there. And it's going to be a metahuman prison, and that's how they end the show. Whoa. Drinker, this was all to set up Checkmate, so James Gunn's wife can now show up in every fucking superhero movie. She is she's employed for life.
She will.
James Gunn was essentially a gun-for-hire director. He's done some of his own like low-budget films, mid to low-budget films, but he's mostly a hired director. He's an employee. So he's not running a bunch of shit. He's not an EP. He's not a producer. And now they have him running a fucking studio. That's a big jump.
Yeah.
So
and creatively, he clearly has just a pretty niche, area that he can fit into. And anything beyond that, he can't do it. And he tries to fit every fucking movie and everything, that he does into that same mold. And eventually it just gets old. That's the problem. Like, James Gunn is like a one-trick pony when it comes to like his creative output. Yeah, and people are just bored of him now.
He's the Hollywood, peaked in high school. He's peaked in MCU Gunn. Yeah, that's who he is. Like, he will never. He's never going to be that anymore.
Every movie can't be a fucking bunch of misfits who team up and have to learn to work together.
Just you wait.
He had massive success with Guardians, and he's been chasing that ever since. And he's never been able to. Even with the follow-ups to the first Guardians, they were never as good as the first.
No,
they weren't. You mentioned that there's not going to be a season 3. Is that so? Is there a reason behind why?
Because so at the end they set up Checkmate, who Hardcourt, his wife. I just want to add some context there, and I've seen a ton of interviews. So James Gunn and his wife have worked out an entire backstory for Hardcourt, like why she's so broken, why she like goes into bars, drink her, and starts fighting.
I don't care.
Hang on.
I don't care either.
I know, but there's a point to this. So he starts fights. She starts fights with dudes bigger than her, and they set up this backstory for this broken person and never bothered to tell anybody else about it. So, like on their own time, they set up this entire mythology for Hardcourt that we're supposed to have context for in the show, and they don't show any of it.
Right.
So she
just comes across as like an unlikable arsehole then.
No one fucking cares about this character.
No.
They have ham-fisted Hardcourt down our throats because she's James Gunn's wife. Like that's why this is happening. That's why they set up like Peacemaker season 2 shouldn't have happened. At least not in the way it did. If you wanted to do it, it actually would have been and if you were gonna introduce multiverses anyway, if you're gonna do all this shit, it would have been the perfect opportunity to explain why these fucking characters in some way still exist. For the first fucking episode, John Cena sitting there with Eagly, fucking walks into his multiversal door, looks at a fucking door, is like, oh, that's weird. Walks into it, and it is the new DC universe, right? The old one he was in was the Snyderverse and all the characters that stemmed out of that, which, became so bastardized and all this shit. The new one is the DC universe, and he decides to stay there, and you get different iterations of these characters. Because if you're gonna introduce the multiverse, just fucking do it.
Just do it.
But instead, you've got all these characters who still have links to these things in the past. You're trying to deal with the death of Rick Flag Jr. from James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. Like in this same world where somebody he partnered with there supposedly put Superman in the fucking hospital with a kryptonite bullet to the head, yet the Superman we have now in this DC universe apparently just lost his first fucking fight. None of it makes sense, and that would have been the easiest way if you really wanted to have your fucking wife and all these stupid fucking characters you made for Peacemaker. You could have done it that way, but no. Now it's messy as fuck.
Yeah,
agreed. Because that also, of course, brings in the old Harley Quinn, which also therefore brings in the old Joker, which therefore brings in, Jared Leto's Joker is technically the Joker in this universe because of what James Gunn's done.
So yeah, because they had to have with Rick Flag Jr., they had to have him mention Enchantress, which then canonizes Suicide Squad.
Yes.
In which Ben Affleck's Batman appears in. You didn't need to do this.
No.
You didn't have to do it this way, but you did.
And his whole attitude is, it doesn't really matter that much. And he's supposed to be a comic book guy. A DC comic book guy. To say this shit doesn't matter to DC fans, that's fucking insane.
This is the thing, like it goes beyond just the comic books and stuff, and it gets into just basic human psychology. Okay, if you're going to buy into a shared cinematic universe like this, it has to have rules that it adheres to, and it has to be consistent. That's all people need to get invested in something. But the moment you start saying, well, we kept this bit and that bit from the previous one and we ported it over to this new universe that we've created, and just don't think about it too much if it doesn't make sense, because who cares anyway? It's just there to like make some bright colors appear on your screen. No, that's not how these things work. That's not how the human brain works, and it's not how we engage with fiction. We have to believe in the fictional worlds that we're seeing, and like, as much as I shit on the MCU, they at least stayed somewhat consistent with that. They've got one shared universe, everything's in it. Yeah, it's not always good storytelling, but at least it's somewhat consistent. With this, it's just like there's all different versions, and bits and pieces of one are now getting moved over into the other. And James Gunn's bullshit explanation of, don't just ignore the fact that I'm like basically giving jobs to my brother and my wife to keep them employed. I just enjoy it for what it is. No, it needs a bit more than that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's not how humans engage with this stuff.
Nerderotic.com. Please subscribe.